Good morning, you guys. You guys sweating like I am from your hike? How was the hike? Good? Yeah, sweating like a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs, I bet. So I don't have any of my presenter stuff up yet, and I'm just going to make sure that we're all buttoned up here. But before we begin, I just want to take a moment of gratitude for, first and foremost, the volunteers, people who volunteer here, for Christy and Allison who put this stuff all together for us. It's amazing. It's amazing. Yuri and his brother Adam, they put this together with a single mission in mind, which is to bring you an event unlike any other. So with that, we'll get started. So my story is, as Yuri mentioned, I came up through public service. 20 plus years in special operations, starting with the Army. I got to do every high-speed thing you can imagine. Jumping from airplanes, I got inserted by helos into some pretty scary areas, ground operations, and then from there, I transitioned into the world of tactical operations. So a couple of things. K9 was my first love. I had an amazing partner. If you ever want to feel something primal, hunt a human being with a dog. There is nothing like catching a bad guy with a dog, let me tell you. From there, once I left K9, I did 2 years in undercover operations, real sneaky peeky kind of stuff. Homicide investigations where we would spend 6 months doing surveillance. We create a nice diversion, get them out to a place to have dinner. We break into their house, do installs so we could listen to them. High-speed stuff, right? Like this stuff you see on TV. Just as an aside, it's never in the lights, ever. It's not where we put it. Where we do put it, oftentimes, is behind the fridge. So this one operation in particular, like this was a homicide investigation, and so we needed to get up on wire. And these guys that do these installs are super geeks. Like their eyes are always tracking like Cylons. You know, they're just high-speed guys in terms of the world of electronics. So we'll come into an area, you know, a complete residential area. They'll drop jammers, so all cell phones are jammed in the area. Break into the house, do the audio installs. So on this operation, we get up, gets all done. The people come back to the house. The monitoring room comes up, wire comes up, we can hear them. Like, God, it worked. 24 hours later, first thing on the wire is, did you unplug the fridge? This is the mom saying to the suspect. It's like, I don't know. For whatever reason, the guys doing the install didn't plug the fridge back in. Potentially blew a 6-month operation. So that kind of stuff happens. And then from there, once I came out of undercover, I went right into tactics, where I spent the majority of my career, and finished as the tactical team leader. So I'm going to have to work through a couple of things. This little trick in tactics: no plan survives first contact. So that applies in all walks of life. You think you've got something dialed, you show up, they're like, oh, that's not going to work. So you got to be adaptable. So the first thing, I'm going to lay the foundation so that when I get to the points, we understand what's important and give you a foundation to use these tactics that I'm going to give you today. The first is we have to learn to listen. And in the Army, I was told more than once, I like to ask questions. I am not the smartest guy in any room, I assure you. I ask a lot of questions. And so my sergeant major would always come back. He'd, Private Lamb, are those goddamn ears painted on? So and then I started to wonder, are they? Why am I the only one always asking questions? The first thing we need to do in business is be good listeners. And you guys have that ability through your practice. Some of you, that's how you're going to be able to diagnose your clients, the people that you're going to give care to. You have to be able to listen. And there's a bunch of things that happen when you listen. The first thing is you help others. When people come to you and they want your ear, they want you to provide them reassurance. So you're helping them. They want to tell they want you to listen to their story. They want to be heard, and they want some reassurance from that. The second thing is you learn things, and you don't necessarily learn things about them, but you learn things about yourself. And what I mean by that is when they're telling you or working you through a problem, you have an internal dialogue that's happening, and you're like, would I handle that problem that way? How they resolve that issue, could have I done that? So you learn things about yourself, and it causes that internal reflection. You develop patience. You guys, most of you already know this, but man, nothing happens in this business overnight. It is a grind, and if you don't have patience, you're going to get frustrated. You develop compassion, and I cannot tell you and how important compassion and kindness are to me. It is the essential human element, is to be kind to others. And then you develop understanding. And again, that's just to dovetail my earlier point. Within the stories of others are lessons for yourself. So I'll give you an example of good listening. My wife, that's not my wife. That's Rachel McAdams. But my wife is a police officer. She's been a police officer for 26 years. She's here. You'll see her hanging out. She's got such a high level of empathy. She couldn't come watch me this because she'd just be like, God, Todd, he's sweating. He's dropping. Anyways, so she's like, I can't come. But she, in her 26 years of service, she developed an uncanny ability to listen. And she's in, before she got promoted, she is in major crime. So her forte was interviewing and interrogation. Bad guys, rapists, murderers, thieves, all of it. And she would sit and let them talk 8, 9, 10, 12 hours. Out of pure interest. What drove them? And when they'd slow down, she'd just say, tell me more about that. These guys, they would walk right up to the point in time where they committed the crime. Be more than happy to tell her about the crime and then why they did it. And just out of sitting and listening, they just wanted to be heard. So imagine being so good at listening that the person on the other side of the table is willing to send themselves to jail for 20 years. That, when you've arrived at that, you've achieved something. So it's very important. But can anybody see a problem with that? Living with a master interrogator? Are you kidding me? This is how it goes. This is how it goes in my house. I get this from the bedroom. Honey, so I give it this to the bedroom, run down, slide in. She's like, how does this look? Duh! So then I just freeze. I don't look because she's looking for physical cues. She's looking for physiological cues. So I just slowly do this, back out. I'm like, 5 from the hallway. It's horrible. I go away for a guy's weekend, come back, anything you want to tell me? I'm like, what? And there's nothing, right? But I just get instantly panicky. I wouldn't want to be interviewed by her. It's terrible. So I've always known that I wanted to make a difference. I've wanted to have a profound impact on people's lives, and I believed I could do that through public service. Policing, serving my country, serving my community. I loved it. But what I also found was this deep, burning desire to run a business. And even to invent something. Like, God, who doesn't want to invent something? Like, how cool is that as an entrepreneur? Which I did, and I'll show you that in a minute. Kind of. And I'll show you that. So what happened was, as I progressed through the ranks, I was deeply conflicted. And I just want a quick show of hands, like how many of you guys out there have known you were meant to do something bigger than what your parents are doing or what they told you could do in school. It's that incredible burning all the time. It keeps you up at night. And that's what was happening to me. And I was like, why am I not living my complete purpose? So I started to look for external validation to sort of placate that desire. So let me set the stage here for you. So that's my house in 2006. Beautiful backyard, outdoor kitchen, nice in-ground swimming pool, like party central, hosted all the time, kids swimming, lots of laughs. Anybody tell me what's missing from there? Sure, good one. Oh, God, I hate grass. Like, you go to grass around a pool, then you're just doing this all the time. I love that place. It was so hot back there. It was amazing. Here's what's missing. Margaritas. I am a sucker for Slurpee drinks. I don't care. I'll walk into a room full of guys with mouths full of chew and guns and holsters and 511s and knives, and I'll be like, Bellini, please, I will have that. I love that stuff. So back in 2006, the world hadn't really progressed in the area of, Margaritavilles. Those didn't exist yet. And so I went on to a little place called eBay, and I tried to find a margarita maker. And no dice, right? They were the old, like 4 things. They're all like $4,000. So I set out on a mission to build my own. And there we have. Anybody know what that is? The little orange thing? That is called a redneck margarita maker. And my brother and I made it. And I am like, if I want this, other people want this, because it was just incredible. So in the box, underneath that box is a kitchen carburetor. Carburetors make the perfect slush ice. It's the perfect consistency. It's just succulent little bits of ice. And so what it would flow out of the carburetor like you normally would. It would drain. You'd switch that red valve. It would circulate back into the cooler, and you could just make pails of them. It's amazing. So I said to my brother, I'm like, before we start on this venture, I'm going to photograph this thing. I'm going to photograph this whole process. So we photographed it old school. We had digital cameras at least. So we got that together. And I'm like, I'm going to put it on eBay. So I put the plans on eBay for $5. $5 a pop. I'm like, nah, whatever. August of 2006, we made $3,000. $5 a pop. I was like, honey, you can make money on the interweb. This is real. This is a real thing. You can do this. So that just lit a fire on me like you can't even believe. So I had to go through a process of approvals with the police department. Any outside employment they have to approve. So I said I'm going to create fitness and martial arts programs, and we're going to sell them online. 2 lines back, police board says you're approved. Good to go. Off I went. So you can't see the logo here. I don't know why it turned out that way. We started Submissions 101, which is, I don't know if any of you guys are BJJ players, but Submissions 101 was the premier jiu-jitsu channel on YouTube. We had 150,000 subscribers, millions of views. So I'm like, okay, this is cool. So then I was like, there's this thing called mixed martial arts that's on the rise, and these guys got really jacked bodies. Why don't we teach those guys how to look like these fighters? So we created this site called Iron Guard Fitness, and that was back, I don't know if you guys tried to upload videos back in 2006. It was black magic. It was not easy to do. So we figured out a way to do it, and you could go there, you could get your exercise, and then you could see how it was all done, and we gave you workouts, that whole thing. I'm like, there's got to be more to this. things off to the races. So I stumbled on, anybody here ever hear Craig Ballantyne? You guys know Craig? It amazes me that some people don't, right? That's why I love the internet. There's so many people yet to touch. I love it. So I came across Craig, and Craig had this group of guys that was getting together in Toronto, and he's like, I'd gone through a few of his things to learn how to market, and he's like, why don't you come out? Like, okay, who's going? He's like, this guy named Vince Del Monte, this guy named Yuri Elkaim, a guy named Adam Steer, a whole crew of guys that I'd never heard of, but they were the up-and-comers. And he's like, it's $5,000 US. Like, whoa. Doing the math on that, 10 to the 7th power, carry the 1. That's $47,000 Canadian. I cannot afford that. So I am just like, Yuri said he's stubborn. I have the bad combination of being stubborn and thick, right? Like 2 pounds of hammers in a 1 pound bag. That's how thick I am. So I'm just grinding through this stuff day and night to try and learn how to do this online marketing stuff. And so long story short, I sucked, right? It was terrible. I couldn't keep, I'd create these products. We'd get a few sales, $1,000 a month here, nothing there. So in 2014, I got another email. So this is now, so these guys, this was happening for them in 2009, and I stayed in touch with them, watched their progress. They blew it. I was watching these guys just like millions of dollars. I'm like, awesome. This is such a rainy night shift. This is good. What do you mean that guy is beating that girl up? God, it was just terrible juxtaposition. So 2014 came around. I got a second chance to attend a mastermind. And Yuri made mention the other day about, a guy in a room leaning back and kind of checking a guy's stats. That guy wasn't me. But I was in that room at the time. And so that actually happened. And that's where I met my business partner. So 2014, go through it. I spent 2014, the entire year building this product, every spare moment. I was on call 24/7, 365, unless I booked time off. So if I wasn't getting paged out to operations, I was at home either filming content, writing programs. We finally launched in 2015. 2015, January, things just blew up. It got mental. Our first product called Alpha, just kind of leveraging some of this position, went bonkers. 6 months, no problem. I get a call into the chief's office, July 2015. He says, want you to take your site down. I said, I'm not doing that. Here's my letter of permission. He's like, we don't like the ad, right? Super aggressive. It was guys, testosterone. Well, guys have testosterone. Say, we just don't like it. Like, you can't sit around a table and not like it. So 2-month battle. They came full court press. It was unbelievable. They did press releases. They leaked my emails to the press. We have crime and people needing saving and all these kinds of things. And I was front page news. Are you kidding? For fitness? Helping people? Come on. Yep, I was, because it makes for good headlines. So long story short, September of 2015, oh man, just gets my heart rate elevated. I decided I've had enough. So we went through the process. Everything was unsubstantiated. It was completely political. It was for show, and I get that. I respect that. I mean, in some way, I do. But it was time for me. So I sat and labored for a good week. Anybody here seen the Twilight series, vampire series? Yeah, dudes are all sitting on their hands. Get lost. You guys have seen it. Come on. So the one vampire, Edward, like the main guy, he breaks up with the girl Bella, right? And so you get this sequence of events where she's now heartbroken. It's angsty teen or young love, and she's in her room just screaming. I was Bella for a week. That's how I would walk around my house, sitting at windows with coffee and the just staring out the window, thinking about this process, screaming, "Ah, Edward!" I don't think I said Edward, but that's what I felt like. It was painful. It was painful. About day 7, put pen to paper, one line, please accept my letter of resignation, effective immediately. Went in, walked away from $1.2 million guaranteed salary, lifetime pension, guaranteed $7,000 a month. See ya, because I chose myself that day. So, yeah, thank you. So, full circle, I went from that guy to this business guy to hanging out with those dudes. And I was like, yes, I've arrived. And you look at that picture, and I know what you guys are thinking. Animal lovers will be like, hey, he kind of looks like his dog. Other people will be like, hey, he only owns one suit. It's not. I own more than one suit. And if you weren't thinking that, you're thinking that now, right? No, practice like you play. If you don't think I've rehearsed this thing a million times, I have. The unfortunate thing was that come Friday when I arrived here, I blew the whole thing up and rewrote it. So crazy. Second thing that you need to understand, and this is critically important. We have a saying in special operations that an opportunity missed is an opportunity lost. And so you have to be able to recognize opportunities when they come your way. During any SWAT operations, when an opportunity presented itself, I'd have to just make a bunch of measured calculations. If we had as much as a 70% chance, that's it, 70% success rate, we would take that opportunity. So whether it was a dynamic entry for an armed confrontation, a hostage rescue, even just taking down a bad guy in a sketchy area of town, 70% we would make that move. And when lives are at stake, whether it's a hostage, whether it was one of my team members, that's a lot. That's a big margin for error, right? Big margin for error. But we recognized that very important fact. And that opportunity in that moment in time, that window, may never, ever come again. And so I take that back to 2014 when I got that invite for the mastermind. It had come full circle. And you sometimes don't get 2 chances at things. So I grabbed on. But what we also understand in recognizing opportunities, and when we deep dive what caused us to miss a critical opportunity, we begin to understand what drives our thought processes and the way we make decisions. So yesterday, David was talking about your brain as an operating system. So today, just by happenstance, what I'm going to do is install some hardware into that operating system. Like physically give you a process for your brain to work through the biggest problem that, in my opinion, keeps people from success, and that's fear. So we all have an idea of fear and how it's defined, response to physical or emotional danger. And in my experience, it falls into 2 categories. So chronic or pathological fear, and that's fear of thinking about the future, or situational fear, and that's to a more immediate threat. Let me run you through situational fear. That was my partner, Rogue, who my business is named after. That is a very serious animal. So in summer of 2006, I'm on patrol with him, and we get a call of a domestic assault. Bad guy is beating up his girlfriend at the time and members of her family. And my heart rate's going to elevate here. So one thing I learned about domestic operations or domestic assaults is these bad guys, if you don't catch them, they're coming back. So when the call would clear, I'd tuck my dog truck into a driveway, turn out the lights, and I'd wait 40, 45 minutes tops, if I didn't track him once already. But when I put the dog out, cast him around, no scent, he's either on a bike or a car or whatever. Sure enough, 45 minutes later, car comes zooming by, throw on my lights, throw on my blues, and pursuit. He goes around a corner, I go around a corner, he's gone. I'm like, so I stop and just wait in the road. Sure enough, he comes back around, lights off, he's heading for me, full tilt. We're going to have a head-on collision. So I managed to get out of the way. I spin back, he spins around. I spin back around, I come to the house. He's at his girlfriend's house. As I come around the corner, there's the car up on the grass at the house, door open. He's not there. So I come around, and now I'm like slow. So I'm scanning, looking around. I can't see him in the car, and out of my peripheral, he comes running, gun. And he's coming running right at me. So hard into reverse, gun out, radio, Saanich, Kilo 4, bad guy's got a gun. She comes back, copy, Kilo 4, 1 in custody. What? 1 in custody? No, gun. This guy's got a gun. I come out of the truck, I grab my dog, we're coming around. I'm starting to advance on this guy. I'm about 4 pounds into a 6-pound trigger pull to drop him. He shoulders the door. Who's behind the door? The girlfriend. I can't take that shot. She comes out. We're now into a hostage standoff for 2.5 hours talking to this guy. So that is acute fear. Heart rate comes up. You know, we're responding to the situation. And I tell you the story about my initial reaction because it stresses a point about installing that hardware and processes, which we'll get to here. Chronic or pathological fear is thinking about the future, and that can lead to anxiety, right? I've battled with anxiety for my entire life, but I consider it the gift of high performers if you manage it properly. If not, it can drive you to senseless doubt and worry, and when it becomes irrational or paralyzing, you have to defeat it in order to make breakthroughs. I've always viewed fear as a door, and that's why I called this breaking down doors. In order to advance in a meaningful way, you have to break through those doors, break them down. And people are like, oh, Todd, don't be so aggressive. You just go through that door. Just open it. No. If I don't break, I never want that door to be an obstacle again, ever. I never want to encounter it. I want to defeat it in the first instance. That's the only way I'm going to maximize my potential. So what we're going to talk about is the actual process. It's called the Rule of 8. Oh, son of a... How do I start this back up? Anyone? There we go. It's called, the process is called the Rule of 8. And I think in the bio, it said that's what I was going to talk about. So there's 4 steps in the Rule of 8. There's locate, isolate, communicate, and eliminate. So we'll talk about the first one, which is locate. I've got about 15 minutes left here. So can anybody here give me a good definition of metacognition? Just throw it out. Go ahead. Totally perfect. I wish I had like cash to throw down to you right there. Thinking about thinking is what she said. So it's an awareness of your own thought processes at any given moment in time. Good situational awareness. And so when I talk about locating fear, what I want you to do is go through a process and define the source. So what is it? What is actually causing you fear in that moment? Is it a launch that's just tanked and now you're not going to be able to make the money to build your business? I can tell you a story. I won't have time for it, but I can tell you that happens to everybody. 2 years of struggling with one offer. It happens to everybody. So what tools or skills exist to help define and locate the source of your fear? we use something called emotional compartmentalization. So that is how people who are high performers still press on through these incredible tasks. Meanwhile, there's some other piece of their life or situation that is so chaotic. I can tell you that going to hundreds of vehicle incidents, and some of them that I wish I could unsee, and then going to a home after the fact and telling them that their daughter or son had died, I do no service to them to break down. So we have to learn emotional compartmentalization. And one of the most valuable tools that I use to assist me in that process is Stoic philosophy. I don't know, I'm not the staunch practice. I don't read it every day, but man, it has helped me really understand a bit about myself. The next phase of this system is communicate. You need to find an outlet such as a coach or a mentor, a like-minded group, or a spouse with whom you can be vulnerable. You have to be vulnerable. You have to be able to be yourself and say, listen, this is tanking. I don't know why. I just need to figure things out. You need somebody who's going to be there for you and supportive moving forward. You have to own your feelings in that process. Don't minimize them. Don't discount them. Be very true to that emotion that's happening. And you have to find the right people. You have to find the right people. It serves you no purpose to go to somebody to work you through a problem, and they're like, yeah, that is hard. That's not what now I'm twice super scared. I wasn't, but now I am. When you are around people who just echo your fears, I liken it to explosive forced entry, where you've got blast concussion. So we would always stand back, door goes in, and the blast concussion doesn't dissipate. It's picking up speed. And if you're in the wrong place, it will just liquefy your insides. So when you're around the wrong people, they're just creating more fear for you. They're making it worse. You have to find the right people. And this is the big one. So we go through that process where we locate, we then isolate through emotional compartmentalization. We communicate to a group, a coach, a mentor. They give us some direction how we're going to work through it. But I want you to work through eliminating it using this process. We all know what courage is, right? Apparently, it's like wetting your pants and running with wet pants, according to Yuri, right? I don't want to do that. I don't. I get it, but I don't want to do that. So courage is a muscle, just like any other, and it needs to be exercised. And the way you exercise courage is in two phases, in my opinion, and in my experience. So the first phase is a process that we call stress inoculation. Has anybody heard that phrase before? Right? So stress inoculation is just a fancy way of saying visualization, right? So I take you back to that dog call in 2006 where I come around the corner and I see that guy running at me with a gun. I can tell you unequivocally that I rehearsed that scenario in my head no less than 1,000 times. Because I had watched a video of a trooper get out of his car and a guy in a truck turning with an AK-47 and killing him on the spot. I said, that's never going to happen to me. And I mentally rehearsed first thing, hard to R, create time and distance space so I can make proper decisions. Stress inoculation, like David mentioned the other day, your brain does not know the difference. So when we go through entries, when we plan hostage rescues, when we plan drug raids, those were all rehearsed thousands and thousands and thousands of times. If we had layouts of the building, we would rehearse it so that we knew every move. Now, that process, you have to take into account that sometimes the bad guy has a say. Going back to the first thing, no plan survives first contact. You have to be able to adapt and overcome. But when you go through the process of stress inoculation, there's nothing that will serve you better. Visualize yourself succeeding. Visualize that whole process of whatever it is. Your launch of your podcast. Visualize that process. And the second is the use it or lose it principle. So in order to summon courage, you have to demonstrate it in a variety of different situations. And here's how you do that. So I want you to keep thinking about this in terms of a waterfall. We're just going to keep progressing down the waterfall here. It's called the 4 Alpha Protocol. So inside Eliminate, we have what we call the 4 Alpha Protocol. Step number 1 is called the action stack. That just sounds badass, right? Action stack. From there, once you're in the action stack, there's a sequence of events inside that first phase, which we'll go through here. I always like to think about anything in my business, whether we're having success or we're having a difficult time, I always imagine my foot on a gas pedal propelling me forward. Every minute of every day, I try to focus on that gas pedal, moving myself forward, because the brain cannot focus on 2 things at once. So if you're focused on action, you're not focused on fear. Every study that is out there in neurocognition around these types of things has shown us that the brain can only focus adequately on one thing at a time. So think about if that works for you or some other, if you like motorcycles, hand on the throttle, think about that. So what I want to give you right now is a highly effective way to implement action. It has 5 elements. So in the action stack, we have a process called SMEAC. This planning process, planning for action, can be used to fight wars. It is the same planning process. It can be used to launch your podcast. So we have 5 components to that: situation, mission, execution, administration, and communication. So think about laying it out in terms of a very basic operation. We'll go through each one here. So situation. The situation is I want to attract more leads through the use of a podcast, right? Mission. You're just stating your goal clear and concise. Your goal is by the year 2019, this time next year, I want to have 100,000 downloads on my podcast. It's simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. This is the same plan that I used in 2010 when we hosted the Olympics, the torch run, to plan a 250-man mission with 8 multiple venues. Talk about fear. Can you imagine being the guy's security plan where that torch gets snuffed out by some protester? Oh, I was sweating bullets that entire week. It's terrible. Your mission, your goal is clear and concise. It's where you lay out your plan of action. Execution. You do your mission. Execution is where you lay out your plan of action. That has 2 subcategories called groupings and taskings. And for you guys, it is simply things like whether some of you are going to fill all of these roles. But for bigger operations, it's your marketing department. It's your customer service department. Those are your groupings. It's your tech team. You order your groups of components that's going to make you successful, and then you give them very defined taskings in each role. Customer service, have your SOPs ready. Customer service, have all the download links. Just lay it out one at a time. Situation, mission, execution, groupings and taskings by order of importance, however you want to lay that out. From there, you go into administration. This is just the simple background stuff that you have to have. You have to have all your SOPs written. You have to have the phone numbers in place. I laughed when Rudy told me the other day he did a product launch and his team hadn't even uploaded the PDF. You got to have processes in place to test that stuff because, again, nothing ever survives first contact. You need to have all your admin buttoned up tight. Your T's crossed, your I's dotted. Last one is communication. So communication is just your notification process. What you're going to run out to the team leads. This is what we're doing on such and such date. I want us to have everything prepped to go. So very simple communication plan. But when you leave people in the dark, that's when things break. So inside the action stack, which is our first alpha in the 4 Alpha protocol, we have a planning process called SMEAC: situation, mission, execution, administration, and communication. So that's your action. You cannot go through that process and be fearful. It's not possible. You're too busy. You're too busy. You've got too much on the go. And you guys will all get a copy of these slides with my notes, so don't feel too bent out of shape if it doesn't come together for you. I've got about 5 minutes left. So association is the second A. Enough said on this. You have to surround yourself with like-minded people. If you don't, you will absolutely become what those people are, and they will try to pull you down. People want you to succeed. They don't necessarily want you to do better. So when I left the police department, and my wife still works there, I still have friends on the job there. That guy's an idiot. Okay, probably not. They have no idea what I do. They can't even comprehend it. They just want the golden handcuffs, the easy money, make sure everything is just hunky-dory all the time. I just not hardwired that way. And what I did was surrounded myself with guys like Yuri, guys like Vince, guys like my business partner, Adam. Get your A team in place. So associations. Next one. I wish I had more time for this one because it is my favorite. Affirmations. Quotes. Those kinds of things. I'm a junkie for it. I love it. But make no mistake, affirmation without action is insanity. So I don't know if you guys can see that right there, but in 2016, I made that cup. That's my teacup. And it says, in the best art possible, because it's from Starbucks where you could bake those mugs, because I'm all about tokens for my affirmations. It says number 1 on ClickBank. Okay? So I drank from that mug for 2 years. And we launched our product in 2016 that we thought was going to take us there. And it tanked so bad, so bad. I can't even tell you how dejected I was. But I kept drinking from that mug for 2 years. And I can tell you this morning, we're number 1 on ClickBank. Right? Yeah. Bizarre. So I believe in tokens and reminders. And this next one is for Yuri. Yes. So when I left policing, I was no longer running my dogs around. I had a nice Toyota Tundra that I loved. I thought, I don't need this truck anymore. I gave it to my wife. She traded it in, got a 4Runner, and I took her RAV4. And I drove that thing for 2 years while it sucked every ounce of testosterone out of my body. A nanomole at a time. But I'll tell you, I wasn't driving a RAV4, and people think I'm weird for this. I was driving what you see down there right below it is a BMW M4, which is a car that I love. And so I would just visualize that subtle leather steering. And I'm a car guy. Like, I love cars. It's terrible. I wish I didn't, but I do. And so I stared at that picture every morning on my iPad. I would see it, touch it. I would listen to how it sounded when I drove the RAV4. It's hard to visualize that. And now that M4 is what I drive every day now. So yeah, it's real stuff. I'm telling you. You talk to Yuri's wife, Amy, about the power of visualization and using tokens to achieve your goals and dreams. So the next day is accountability. And we've all heard that, right? Own your stuff. Own it. Be accountable to yourself through your planning processes, using SMEAC if you want, if that works for you. If not, you can do a variation of that. And your productivity. Don't get lazy. Do not get lazy. You only achieve these goals through pushing and working. Be accountable to your team by setting an example. If there was a day that I could never do that tactical physical, I would have handed in my gear right then and there. You have to lead by example. Do the things you say you're going to do. So here we go, about a minute left. I'm just going to conclude with a couple closing thoughts. First, remember what your framework here, your baseline is. Listen. Learn to listen. Be a good listener. Master that craft. It will carry you beyond anything else. Learn to recognize and seize opportunities. You'll know it. You will feel it. I sat in my chair when I got that invitation and I felt it right. And like, this is my time. It's time for me to go and pursue this. It's time to put up or shut up. You will feel that. Eliminate or defeat the fear. And you can use this process. I've installed that hardware in your brain. You locate, you isolate, you communicate, and you eliminate. When you're eliminating using the 4-alpha protocol and your action stack, you have the SMEAC planning process. Associate yourself with A players. I cannot stress it enough. Being here is exactly what you're doing. That is why we come here. I come out of these things so revved up, listening to the stories. Todd Watt, oh my God, that story is so powerful. You guys need to connect with him and hear that story. Affirmations. Affirmations with action. It's okay to have those pictures, but if you're sitting at home pounding pints every night, that's going to do nothing. You have to take the right action and then be accountable. So here it is. This is my talk for the weekend. Do not chase your dreams. That irritates me to no end. Hunt your reality. Dreams are abstract. They're what kids think about. You get out there and you hunt it like you've hunted nothing else in your life. And this is a quote I came up with the day that I left the police department. So I stood at the cliff's edge and I jumped and I landed higher than I ever thought possible. Thank you, guys.